Hello and welcome to Biker Stories with Bike and Biker. I have Rakesh and Areeb with me from the team, and today we're talking to Manohar Joshi, one of the very well-known riders in the Bangalore community. He's got uh, probably 6.5 to 7 lakh kilometers under his belt on various bikes. We'll talk to him more about all his rides. Professionally, he's a cinematographer and does a lot of work with the Kannada film industry now, making a foray into Bollywood. Manohar, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Arjun.
And what's been keeping you busy during the last 60 days of lockdown? What have you been busy with?
Busy shedding down some weight actually. So I had put on a lot of weight, especially in the last 1 year. So and that became a big hindrance when I was riding. So I had terrible knee pains, tailbone pain issue, lower back issue, back issue, so shoulder pain. So there were like tons of issue, and I had severe pain during my rides. So
Okay.
last year we did a Kanyakumari ride. So while returning back, I suffered a lot. Like literally had to like stop the vehicle like every 40, 50 kilometers and get down, stretch my knees and again start bike riding. So after that, I decided that it's time to do something about weight loss. So I had started a bit of dieting. Then lockdown really helped. So shed down almost 25 kilos during the
See,
lockdown.
Wow. Wow.
you're probably one of the few people who'll have a lockdown weight loss story. I think most of us have a
Put on weight.
lockdown weight
Definitely.
gain story.
Yeah.
So,
So, Manu, where did it all start for you? The motorcycling journey. How did it start? From when did you decide that okay, this is a hobby that you're going to pursue? And obviously, with 7 lakh kilometers of riding under your belt, I'm pretty sure this is not a hobby anymore. It's a way of life for you. So, where did it
Yeah.
all start?
So, very interesting thing when I was 17 and my brother was 23. So, we decided to get an Enfield for us, and we literally begged our father to get us the bike because neither he nor me would have got a loan. So, we got a loan under his name, and that's the bike that still is there with me. That's an Enfield Machismo A350. So that was the last right-geared bullet from Royal Enfield, and that cost us 67,000 rupees back in 2000, and it was like a great deal. So we literally like begged our father to get us the bike. So finally he agreed, and Madras Motors, if you guys have heard, that was there on JC Road. That's where we bought the bike,
Mm.
and neither of us brothers knew how to ride the bike. So we took the bike, we took the delivery, and we had to ride from JC Road to Vidyaranyapura. And I think that 14 or 15 kilometers, that bike stopped at least 40 or 50 times. And you know how the bullet kick hits you back. And every time you kick it,
yeah.
it'll slip, it'll hit back to your shin. And both of us got hit. And since I didn't have a license, luckily nobody checked it, but he was riding it and I was riding it in between. So finally, somehow we got the bike home and we started doing a little bit of riding. So I was not allowed to ride the bike for 1 year till I got my license. So in between, I used to just ride it a bit in the area, like crossroads and all, to learn the bike properly. And when I got my license, finally I was allowed to ride. And the day I got my license, I took the bike to Kodachadri Hills. So that was the first ride, and on top of the hill. So then, since I already started doing photography when I was 16 years itself, so by the time I was 18, I was already doing professional photography. So all my shoots, I used to take the bike. It's like most of my shoots used to happen in a place which people love to visit, Goa. So I've literally been to Goa like God knows how many million times. Like I had to go there every 10th or 12th day, stay there for 4 to 5 days, finish the shoots. Like I used to do a lot of food shoots and interior shoots for all the resorts and everybody. So finish the shoot, again ride back. So again after 10 days, again ride, do the shoot and come back. So that's how that passion of riding actually developed slowly. And a couple of times I went in a bus and in a car. So the minute I, even till date, the minute I sit inside a car, I'll sleep off. So, and everybody used to tell me, like, the minute you sit in the vehicle, you will sleep off. What habit is this? So I said, like, okay, fine, let me not sleep. I'll do one thing. From next onwards, I'll just take my bike and will come. And that joy of riding alone became a habit in about 4 years. So I think in the first 3 or 4 years, my Enfield had already done more than a lakh. So done like tons of rides. I used to travel a lot to Mumbai. So even Mumbai used to ride, and back in those days, you know how Khandala Ghat was. So it was beautiful yet scary. All those twists and turns, yeah, but it was fun. And one of the first rides I went up till Manali. So like kept putting all those carriers and everything. I had a shoot over there. So I wanted to do Ladakh back then. I think that was about 2007 or something, but I couldn't. I didn't have the guts. So I went till Manali, returned back from the shoot. Then I couldn't do Ladakh all the way till 2012. So kept visiting tons of places to a lot actually in Kerala and around Andhra, and then I went up till Calcutta. So these were like the big rides that I used to do. So like riding the Enfield and like repairing it now and then fixing the punches all by yourself. And at times during peak season, I had to pitch up a tent, and I had like a small stove as well that I used to carry. So if so I had pitched up the tent, like cook all by yourself. So those were like fun days. So pretty much I started riding a few months before I got my license. So that's when I was 18. So now I'm 36. So I've been riding.
Wow, 18 years and 7 lakh plus.
So you've been riding for exactly half your life now. So
Yeah,
Half of my life, yeah.
absolutely. Very lucky, very lucky. We all started a bit late, I think.
Yeah. So Manohar, what bike do you ride now, and why have you chosen that bike?
Right now I ride the Versys 650, and I moved to Versys from super low, and somehow didn't connect with that bike. Rode it for a good 4 years, and somehow I felt like this is not the bike that I want to take further. And in 2016, I started checking out my options. I first saw the Benelli GT650, and though everything was like attractive, the price, the accessories that they used to give, and everything, but the bike didn't have ABS and was too huge. And again, that was that was my only option. Then suddenly I got a call from Kawasaki guys from the KTM showroom that they're taking booking for the Versys 650. So then I'd done a lot of research on that bike, and I'd heard that the bike is launching in India. So I had not seen the bike physically at all when I went for the booking. So just with few YouTube reviews and stuff like that, I went and booked the bike in February 2016, and decided to take the delivery in June, which was the birthday month. So I thought finally I thought like this is the bike, and that fitted in the budget, and pretty much that bike could do anything and everything that like 90% of the bikes do, and at least the kind of rides that I was doing and I wanted to ride. So Versys 650 was like a very apt bike in every possible way. So 2016 June is when I picked the bike.
Okay, and how many kilometers you clocked on that? I'm pretty sure it's going to be a huge number.
97,000 right now.
So if you are given an option, what is going to be your next bike?
Definitely Goldwing, because I see that bike coming into my life in a couple of years. The main reason is because I want to move out of a bike which doesn't have a chain. That is the first thing. And second, I like to tour in peace and want to tour further more with my wife. And since pretty much every road is like done up in India, I have the last time I went to Ladakh, even to Khardungla, the tarmac is being laid. So pretty much on all the roads, even like village roads are being like very well maintained these days.
Yeah.
So I don't see another similar kind of tourer. Though I also have a GSA in my mind, but right now when I see people riding GSA right next to me, there is nothing that GSA does and versus cannot, in my view. I mean, pretty much after 140 or 150 kmph, all bikes are same.
Yeah.
So when you're riding, except of course there are like electronics and a little more comfort that those bikes have. But if you just like sit on a GSA and if you get down and sit on my bike and if you ride, they're pretty much the same way in most ways. So of course I wouldn't compare. I wouldn't tell like a GSA is same as a versus 650. There are like tons of differences. But the way like say 90% of people who tour in India, a versus is more than enough. More than enough. Like you don't need anything else. Some people complain that I need a little more horsepower, and some people say I want a little more electronics. I want a little more better wheels, maybe, but that's about it. So that's the reason I want to take that big jump and move into something like a Goldwing, only because I want to tour in more peace. Because for me, going to that place and coming back with tons of memory matters a lot. So I don't go to a place like just touch base and return back. For me, I need to take tons of photos. Of course, it's my occupation as well. So I need to make a lot of videos and stuff like that. I need to preserve all those memories. So right from my first ride, I have most of the pictures and videos and everything. So I want to tour in a much peaceful way going forward in say in the next for the next 10 or 15 years. So definitely, because for me, between a Versys and a Goldwing, I don't see an upgrade for the kind of riding that I do for my usage. So definitely, whenever that happens, whenever God wishes, so that will be the upgrade. So till that upgrade happens, I'm very happy with the Versys.
Spoken my mind. Even I love that bike. One day, maybe Manohar, after you buy, maybe I'll just follow suit.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
So basically, what you're saying is that the Versys lives up to its name of, so Versys being two words, being versatile system, right? So it kind of lives
Absolutely.
up to that name, is what you're effectively saying.
Absolutely.
Definitely, absolutely. So there is nothing that you would hate about that bike. Of course, now after riding it for so many kilometers, so the bike has gone through like almost 17, 18 services. So only thing is you'll start hating the plastics a little bit, but then once in say about 4 or 5 years, just change the fairings and the mask, and the bike is pretty much brand new.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to do anything else to that. Though I've added a lot of stuff courtesy Rakesh sir, and that's only helped me in touring in a much more comfortable way. The bike is absolutely versatile, so you don't need anything else apart from a Versys for any adventure tourer.
If money was not a consideration, what bikes are you going to put in a garage? Do you have something like a garage goal that okay, these are the bikes that should be in my garage?
Absolutely, I do. There are a few bikes that I want to own, maybe some later part in my life. So I love cruiser and I love sports bikes as well. So there was a time I had almost picked up a Busa. So Busa is something like a first love for most of my generation guys. So that's like the first super bike we all have seen, and we all love curvy things. So, and Busa was the first thing that everybody fell in love with. So definitely want to own a Busa sometime in my life. And I did own an intruder for a very short period of time. So maybe if I get a good deal on an intruder, maybe later on. So either that or a Triumph Rocket. So I love the Rocket. So I have this very love towards heavy motorcycles. So for me, a motorcycle is never heavy. So if that was the case, then I would still ride a Luna. So I've always loved heavy motorcycles.
Yeah.
So even my Versys weighs probably that is the heaviest Versys you will see.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but I've never really felt that weight while riding at all. Probably the only time I felt the weight of my bike was when the battery was gone and I had to push it for a good 700 or 800 meters. So that's the only time I felt that weight. But apart from that, I'm a sucker for heavy motorcycles.
That's an amazing list. So other than that, what are the first thing that you do when you buy a bike? I'm pretty sure the kind of kilometers and the kind of riding that you do, you need a lot of accessories.
I'll
So
just add.
what do you do?
I'll just answer that question before he answers it. So Manohar, he starts somewhere, which I'm sure he'll explain, but he never ends. And I don't think even today on his verses he has ended, because his verses is probably the most accessorized verses in the country. It has every conceivable thing. So he's very clear there are some critical portions, critical parts. He'll get the best, and non-critical he does things himself. Go on, Manohar. I think we should have that pictures on this show. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, every time I buy the bike, I've always added stuff to it immediately. Even when I bought the Enfield, so the day I bought it, I mean, the day I started riding it, when I took it from my brother, immediately the first thing I added was carrier to it. So we all know it as a Ladakhi carrier. So I added that, and to that also I had a top box, and I had aux lights for my Enfield, and I had made like rain covers. Everything was done. So even with the Versys, it was a similar thing. Of course, when I bought the bike, unfortunately, Bike and Biker was not open yet, and the only accessory that I could get for the first 1 year was handguards. So that was also an A-service handguard, which was not a direct fit. So I had to do some jugaad to it, and I badly needed aux lights, and no brands were available. So I got a couple of Chinese aux lights from JC Road. Picked it. I fixed it overnight. So thing with Versys is the day I bought the bike, very next day I went to Davangere and rode back, got the bike serviced, and immediately the following day I went to the KTM. I got the bike serviced, and the third day of buying the vehicle, I was off to Ladakh. So the essential thing I wanted was handguard was one thing that I got, and aux lights. So that was the first couple of accessories that I got. Then I couldn't add, or I was in fact not able to ride much in 2016 after the Ladakh ride. So I got the bike in June, then I did a bit of riding till July. Then the bike was pretty much standstill till December. I couldn't do any rides. So 2017 and 18 and 19 were like the years when I rode the most. So then I kept adding one by one. Like every time I went on a ride, I felt like I need something. So everything on my bike is a practical accessory that I needed during a ride. So nothing was put up just because okay, chalta hai, like let me add this. I think there are only two things on my bike which are like of no use. So apart from that, everything is needed for something or the other. So I have this OCD when I travel. So I need things handy. So from tissue papers to like couple of spanners to charger to something or the other, I need them handy, and I need them all in different places. So that's how I kept traveling all my life. So and I don't travel light. So I mean clothes, of course, but there are tons of other things that I have to carry when I ride. So that is the reason I kept adding one by one. So that list like goes on and on. So even now, every time I come back from a ride, I feel like this is missing. I think I should do this next.
Yeah.
So that is never ending.
I think that approach works much better rather than adding up everything. Yeah, of course, if you're experienced, it comes. But I think all of
Yeah.
us learnt a lot during our versus days. and slowly we expanded ours. So Manohar's bike is loaded. I mean, every time he went for a trip and came back saying that I think I should put this because I faced such and such inconvenience. So it started with center stand.
Yeah,
You change your engine guard. I think two times.
yeah, yeah.
You graduated from one to other. Then of course luggage system. He had a plastic Hepcos, and then he changed to Exceed set. His needs have grown. Then he's got those bazookas in the front. All that. Uh, yeah, he keeps everything handy. But tell you frankly, Manu, I mean, I won't be able to handle that bike. It's probably 300 kilos now.
I don't know. I haven't weighed the bike at all. I mean, when I'm moving it a bit, when the boxes are also loaded, of course it tends to be a little heavy to move it around. But
Mm.
honestly, I don't think that's
While
like a big
riding, it does make
hindrance.
a yeah.
Yeah. And when I'm riding, I've never faced any issue. Like with all that weight, with my wife, with all the luggage, I've done 196, 197 on the bike. So I don't have to ask anything more.
Fantastic, and that's what Versys is, I guess, all about. It
Oh yes, oh
takes
yes,
all kinds of.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So anyway, Manohar, all these mods are very critical. But if I have to ask you that one essential mod that you have to pick, and that is one kind of mod that you are going to do to all your bikes, which one would it be?
Definitely ox lights. So because I love riding in the night, generally whenever I'm riding, I head out of Bangalore like say midnight, 2 o'clock, 2:30, because I love doing endurance riding. So the few guys that I ride along with, we don't do too many number of days. Our travels are not for longer days, but for longer kilometers. Like we've done 4 days, 4 states, and in 5 days we have done like 7 or 8,000 kilometers. So our rides are generally this sort of rides. So in a day we have to cover about say 1,000 or 1,200 kilometers. So when you need to cover this kind of kilometers, you need to head out of Bangalore early in the morning, which is like 2:30,
Mm.
and ox lights are the basic thing that you need. So irrespective of rest of the accessories, you have it or not, so a light is something that is very essential, because 99% of the bikes that you take in the market don't have good headlights. I mean, they're okay for city riding or maybe village riding or small town riding, but definitely not on highways. You cannot see anything when you're going on the highways,
Yeah.
and you have people crossing the road. You have trucks which don't have tail lamps or reflectors or anything, so you have a lot of surprises on the highways. So aux lights are one of the basic things that you need. So for me also, light plays a very very important role. And on my Versys, since I ride in the city as well as on the highways, so the reason my bike has three different set of aux lights are only because of this, because I do a lot of small town and village riding. So when I switch on say a Baja Squadron Pro, obviously I'll have people chasing me with stones. So I really cannot, that is too powerful, and the headlamp is not sufficient, so you need something in between. So that's the reason I have these small mad dogs, so that are good enough for say village or small town riding. And I had very basic fog lamps that I used for my last Rajasthan ride. So though were not that great, but was okay in a couple of places when we were riding in the evening in Haryana, and those fog lamps were a little useful. So that's the reason. And when I'm riding on flat highways in the night, so definitely Bahas are like my eye. So only because of that light is why I'm able to do like decent 140, 150 speeds in the night, and we can cover good distances as
Yeah.
well. So aux lights are the basic accessory that I will take to any other motorcycle, irrespective of what I have or I don't have.
So, Manohar, it looks like the Squadron Pro is the favorite go-to auxiliary lights for every adventure rider, or for that matter, cruiser rider as well. So, do you believe that, or do you have an upgrade in mind?
Well, I don't see an upgrade really from the Squadron Pro, because it's well powered, like 40 watts each, and a pair is 80 watts, and the lumens are like spread very well. And the main thing I like about the Squadron Pro is it's not really like a white light. So there is a hint of warmness in it. So it's a little bit of yellow. So the details that you see on the road is way better compared to so many LED lights in the market available. So I had seen a few other lights as well when I wanted to pick it up, but then most of my reviews brought me back to the Baja. And for a bike like Versys, and keeping the battery and the power, everything in mind, so the 40 into 2 power makes perfect sense, because an 80 into 2, like an XL80 of the same Baja, wouldn't make sense on the Versys, because that's seriously an overkill according to me. Because the Squadron Pro, when I'm riding like in pitch dark, in midnight, or even in certain highways where you see that there is street lamp available, but still you need to see a little more details on the road. That is when these kind of aux lights make actually more sense. When it is pitch dark, even a very basic Chinese light or a normal smaller brand aux light also will be good enough, or in fact even the headlamps are good enough, the stock headlamps. But when you're moving on a highway where there is a little bit of say street lamps, or when you're going on say like a flyover or something, so that is when you need more details to get like a little more what you say much, it's much brighter when you have these lights. So the confidence is much better when you're riding. So that way I feel the Baja makes more sense with its power, the lumens, and most importantly, it's tiny. It's not like really huge, so that it drags too much attention from like on goer or something. It's really small, so you can place it wherever you want. I like it placed at the highest point, because since I'm a cinematographer, I know how light falls, and what I can see and what I cannot see. So my idea is when the light falls from the top, so if you have like a pothole, so when the light falls like this, you can see the depth of that pothole. So many people mistake that placing the aux lights at the very bottom makes more sense, because if you see a pothole like this, and if the light falls from this direction, you cannot really judge how deep that pothole is. Only when you throw the light like this is when you will know like how deep the pothole is. So that's the reason I have my brightest aux light at the highest level, which is right next to the windscreen. So that gives a lot more confidence when you ride.
So, Manohar, you have done obviously more than 7 lakh kilometers. So, how do you maintain your bike? Do you work on your bike, or it's just the scheduled maintenance, the services that you go through? Or is there some kind of special care that you take of your bikes?
Well, definitely timely maintenance is required if you want to take the bike for a longer age. And I definitely don't have any plans of changing the bikes like very often. I want to keep bikes for as long as they can move. So yeah, that'll be the same thing with the Versys as well. So I've maintained very timely servicing, which they say about 6,000, but at times I've stretched it to about 8,000. So since it's a city bike as well, so when it's like say I've done about 6,000 kilometers and the oil and the air filter is pretty good, in still pretty good condition, I think maybe stretching it for say another 2 or 3,000 kilometers makes sense, because since I'm not taking it on highways and I'm not doing like say high speed or anything, it's just city riding. So it makes sense to stretch to an extent, but not beyond say 2 or 3,000 kilometers. So definitely, I'm a person who maintains the vehicle like very timely, and they have to get like the best oil, the best air filters, because those are the things that keeps your bike going on. Because I believe no matter where you compromise, maintaining your bike is one thing where you shouldn't compromise. And especially with adventure tourers, like you want the bike to be in mint condition whenever you want to take it out on a longer ride. You don't want like to get stuck up with something. So that's one thing that's very important for me. That's why I have the DNA air filter. I run on Maxima oils. So I haven't really compromised anything when it comes to bike maintenance. I'm not really much of a DIY guy. I was when I was riding Enfield, but I believe the best technician should work on the motorcycle. So, and I believe that if somebody is meant to do certain job, he'll be a better judge on that part. It's not just motorcycle. It's about anything in life. Like I don't want to sit and repair a bulb unless it is my hobby. So I do like doing a little bit of DIY, but it's not like too much. So far, like my work on the bike ends like tightening few screws and like say filling up the coolant a bit here and there. So that's about it. I won't fiddle around with electricals or maintaining the motorcycle or anything. So that's neither my hobby nor I think unless you are an expert in it, you shouldn't fiddle around with the motorcycle.
I think you
Great,
made
great,
a very
Manohar.
valid point, Manohar. If you notice that within our society of bikers, there's a lot of what do you say, jugaad on the quality of oil being used, or some stuff like filters, etc. I think that's a very critical point, and it's a very valid point that you could save money or time on a lot of other things, but I don't think you should play around with the heart of the bike. And
Definitely.
whether whatever oil you use has to be the top quality, whatever filters that you use, whatever changes that you're making. It is something that I have noticed that a lot of people, for example, I did hear a case where somebody said the Maruti 800 oil filter works very well on a Versys 650 and it costs just 50 rupees. And that really surprised me that what could be the difference that it costs 50 rupees and a proper filter costs 700 rupees? And then we realized that the way the engine car works and the way it circulates oil and the kind of filter it uses is completely different from a high speed motorcycle. But these are the understandings that the market needs to have.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, see, honestly, it's. I think it's common sense that when a company is making a particular motorcycle and they have put in a particular uh, product into it, like an oil filter or an air filter or even a smallest nut or a bolt, tons of things would have gone behind it, like choosing a tire or anything. There's a lot of thing that goes into that bike. So I don't think we should fiddle around too much with these things, especially when it comes with the heart of the bike, as you said. So you shouldn't really mess around with it. Of course there are jugaad ways, but that is I believe they should be to the cosmetic level of the motorcycle and not in terms of maintenance of the bike or the fiddling around with the engine of the bike or say anything that might cause damage to the motorcycle on a longer run. So of course
Yeah,
jugaad is allowed in India. I mean, that's in our blood. We do so many
yeah,
things,
yeah.
but I don't think we should really do that. I mean, if somebody has that kind of a mind, why spend say 8, 10, 15 lakh rupee on a motorcycle? All of that can be done on an Enfield or a smaller bike, so which will still run you. It's cheap maintenance. So apart from say the motorcycle running at a higher speed, rest it's pretty much the same thing. So but I don't think we should do that when you say invest so much of like lakhs of rupees of your hard-earned money that you put on a motorcycle and do all of this jugaad. That's because that's really hurting the motorcycle on a longer run. So it might not say blast at you
Yeah.
in return, but it'll respond to you by falling off in a very short span of time.
No, in fact, I will point it out, Manohar. I just wanted to spend 30 seconds on that. There are two bikes. I won't take the note of the other one, but there are two bikes who've done about a lakh. And I have noticed your motorcycle has remained in very good condition is purely because of that periodical maintenance that has happened to the motorcycle. And throughout, I've seen you using the best possible. You were the judge. We left it to you, and you've tried various oils and various combos, and you settle down on one. And today, if you look at both the bikes, there is a drastic difference, right? Your bike seems to be still working like new, and it moves very smooth. I have not seen any problem with the bike at all. Very important point. Thanks for that input, because most of our viewers who will be watching this, they always wonder where to cut corners and where not to cut corners.
Correct. Correct. That's very important because for me, I've stretched the bike to both the ends. Like one is a city usage and one is on a longer
Yeah.
run, like on a highway riding or endurance riding or anything. So I've done good roads, bad roads, off road, extreme off road, everything. I've stretched the bike to its limits. And if something works on the bike, when you push it, it works. But there are so many things that don't work the bike when you push it on the other side. Like that comes like one of the very popular thing discussion on these bikes are tires. So so many people ask me why I have say cut down, I've downsized my tires because I have so much of weight on the motorcycle. So that came out like a jugaad in the first tire change. But then when I ran with those tires, the bike felt absolutely nimble. I didn't see any issue. That I didn't blame myself for putting those tires. Yes, of course, I know there is a little bit of more responsibility with downsizing of tires, that your rims will get hit a little bit more than the previous tire. But of course, see, it's matter of say braking at a pothole or just reducing the speed when there are bad roads. That's all about it, to take care of those rims. So you don't have to be a hero when there is a pothole and just challenge the rims. So I don't believe in that. Uh, it's just a little bit of more sensible things, but if doing these small changes will save you like so much more money, then why not? But I wouldn't do the same jugaad or say changes when it comes to maintenance of the bike when with reference to engine. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put a 50 rupees oil filter. I wouldn't do that. I will still have pretty much still stuck to a Canon or a high flow oil filter. I'm very happy with the DNA air filter already, almost 62,000 kilometers, and just cleaning and I'm putting it back. Absolutely no issues. So oil is running very smooth. I've tried almost all possible oils, even a few grades here and there when I had some issue on the highway. But I've come back to the best oil because I've tried so many other brands and I've stuck to Maxima. There's like tons of debate that happens. But if something works on your motorcycle, it works for you. So if something else works for somebody else and he doesn't notice it, then you cannot really help it. But there are so many things like oil. A lot of people think like when you put a new oil, even if it is like the cheapest oil in the market, when you put a new oil, obviously your bike will feel smooth. There is no rocket science behind it, because the real face of that oil will start popping out only after a few hundred or a couple of thousand kilometers. That is when you really notice. Like
Yes.
Hemant is one person with whom I've ridden a lot more than 50,000 kilometers. We have really gone into like intricate details on finding the right oil, like small tappet sounds which will disturb you while riding when you put a wrong oil. So that's why I always tell, like with Maxima, there's no tappet sound. The bike is smooth after 7,000 kilometers. It is still the same. And when I removed that oil to change it back, I see the color. So you really notice the difference, the kind of beating that oil is taken. So not many people will see these things. They're like, okay, pour some oil. Okay, I changed an oil. The bike is really fresh and everything. So when the oil starts wearing out, you just get adjusted to that roughness. You wouldn't even know that, okay, like 1,000 kilometers ago, my bike was a lot smoother and now the bike is a lot rough. You wouldn't even notice that because we just switch
Yeah.
on the bike and just keep riding. So any small issues with the bike, we just get adjusted to it. we don't really listen to the bike. So these are small things when I kept on riding and riding. So every time I've done after a service, I've noticed a lot of things. Even it might be chain, it might be a tire, it might be oil, so many other things. Even a small coolant change matters. So a lot of these small things. So I mean, with endurance riding and with say long distance riding, you need to keep an eye on these small things that really matter to your bike on a longer run. So because I'm able to do like little bit of brainstorming in these things, I think even after 4 years, like in a few days, like June 1st, my bike will finish 4 years exactly, and it's still running the same thing, no problem whatsoever. Even just today itself, the bike touched 180, and it's absolutely fine, no problem at all.
Mm.
And I don't see any issues at all. Only because the maintenance is like perfect to the dot when it comes to this particular bike.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so do you have any plan post when all of this lockdown and everything is over completely? Are you planning to go on a long ride or an endurance ride?
Yeah, definitely. Monsoon rides is something that we religiously do every year. They have been it's a favorite season for any biker. But for me, honestly, I've never really bothered much about weather. I've enjoyed riding in all weather conditions. So we have done extreme summer rides in extreme weather states. Like we've done summer rides in Andhra and Telangana and Orissa last year. So we literally like almost like 45 plus temperature, but we still loved it. So it was equally
Mm.
fun. And monsoon rides is something that we do every year, and we have done in almost all states where it pours really heavily. So we have chased rain. So even the 4-day, 4-state ride that we did last year, which was Andhra, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, and Orissa. So we went chasing waterfalls during the monsoon, because we know that water during monsoons in these waterfalls will be very high, and the crowd will be less. So that's the reason when we wanted to visit these falls. So we spotted few remote waterfalls all over in these states, like Gudumba Falls in Orissa. In Chhattisgarh, we went to Chittorgarh Falls. So these were like little remote waterfalls that we went chasing it during the monsoon. So the same thing is what we wish to do this year as well. Hopefully, we will be able to ride by then. Just keeping fingers crossed. So maybe by July, August, when it's like pouring really heavily, is when we are planning a few rides. So Kerala is one place we really wanted to do this monsoon, and we were thinking of heading to Madhya Pradesh as well. So that's one more thing. So definitely a lot of plans we keep doing every year. So Ladakh was also planned for this year, but unfortunately that's not going to happen, and the season is gonna run out. So I think I'll just convert that and maybe a winter ride to northeast by end of this year. So these are like a couple of rides that we have planned so far. So hopefully we'll all be corona free. Like India will be corona free by then, and at least we'll find vaccine, or at least we'll be in a much better place than we are right now. So hoping for a lot of long rides.
Anyway, Manu, so you have a lot of lakh kilometers, obviously some 7 lakh kilometers. So you must have a lot of memorable rides that you have done. But if you have to pick up one memorable ride, if even if it is possible, can you pick one ride that is the most memorable for you?
Oh, definitely. No matter how many rides I do in my entire lifetime, one ride will always be very memorable to me, because tons of things happened in that ride. That was my Ladakh ride in 2012. So that was the year I got married, and my wife, who was like waiting for so many years to start her journey on a motorcycle. So everything, like we kept planning for a year and a half, and everything went well. and we went 2012. That was uh, that was the first year I took the Enfield, and though I knew the terrain and everything, but still so many things can go wrong. Like uh, you, like they say, no, you remember the hard times more than you remember the good times, because you keep having a lot of good times on the bikes, but there are so many bad rides that happen, and they're not bad as such, but they just remain in your memory for a longer time than the good rides. So 2012 Ladakh was very special in many ways, but that one ride, like a lot of things screwed up. My entire toolbox, spares, everything got robbed in Kargil. So I was stuck with nothing, and the bike had so many issues. So I'd gone on a project actually. So I didn't ride my Enfield. So I was riding my friend's Enfield. So because we were using that for the shoot as well. So it was 25 men and one lady in that entire trip. So that was my wife, and so every time we were taking a shot, so that guy was riding the bike, and as soon as the shot is over, then I will take over the bike, and my wife and me will start riding. So I think till we reached, I think Rohtang, everything was absolutely fabulous. It was like good highways, and everything was super cool. Everything went according to the plan. But then the slush, everything on that year was very horrible, and the clutch cable got cut, and the brakes gave up, and the spares were robbed, and unfortunately, because we were shooting, the time used to get extended. So most of the days, what used to happen is, like, though the sunlight stays there for like longer duration, like good about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but we use that same sunlight to shoot as well. So many places we had to ride after the sunset. So, and the water passes, they come up in the entire Ladakh the minute the sun goes down. So in about 3 or 4 water passes, when we were crossing I just had to like stop the bike in between. The water went inside the shoes, and I didn't have like good gear back then, like what it is available now. Because back then you didn't have like all these big brands that's available in India now. So I was running on basic motorcycle shoes and those things. So literally had to like remove socks in every water pass, like put it on the silencer, like dry it up again, put it back. And a couple of places we had pitched up a tent. The wind was so much. My wife started feeling very cold, so we had to move to a army camp, so get shelter over there. So tons of things happened in that entire 28 days of trip. So many things, but we came back really strong. Like there's a saying about Ladakh. It's like when you go to Ladakh, you either come back as best of the friends or worst of the enemies. So that was our first ride, and I was telling my wife, so either we will stay very strong for many number of years to come, or we'll get divorced as soon as this ride gets over. So we'll figure it out what will happen by the end of this month. So and it was just like about 5 or 6 months into our marriage, but luckily she survived, and she stayed strong. And we thought like again 2013 we'll come back and do Ladakh, but it didn't happen till 2016. And 2016 was a far better year, because the ride was more comfortable with Versys, but still the bike fell near Pangong Lake, and I had to wrap all the duct tape and bring the bike back. But 2012 Ladakh trip will definitely remain like the most memorable ride, because I went with her, and tons of things happened. Uh, and I was shooting a film which is not released till date. So because that film also is very close to my heart. I really worked, like I slogged for that particular film, went beyond my levels to help the team and everything. So that trip mattered a lot, because we really looked up for that trip, work wise or personal trip wise. So, but that trip will definitely remain very memorable. No matter how many times more I will go to Ladakh, in my life again.
Great. Well, that sounds like a movie in itself.
It was.
Yeah. So, Manohar, it has been a great pleasure to talk to you. But before we end this, before we wrap up these biker stories, there's just two very basic questions that I wanted to ask. The first is that where was the first time that you heard about bike and biker, and how was your experience?
Well, it was lovely because I met Rakesh on the Versys group, and it's great to know that when a fellow biker has like a store like this, like the relationship becomes something else. It's not like going or walking into a say or like a Nike or an Adidas showroom. We always have that very comfort zone when we go to a friend's store to pick up something. Like back in our college days, you remember, if a friend has some clothing store, we used to rush over there. Doesn't matter if he sells good stuff or bad stuff or whatever that is, but there is a sense of happiness. There is a sense of comfort that you get in a particular store. So that's the same thing happened with me with bike and biker as well. So and I believe I don't think or believe in moving out from one store or one person just because there is like one small issue or like a small bad experience or anything. For me, that's not a turn off. For me, I want to push even it might be like the smallest grocery store that I go to a if I go to a dinner to a restaurant. So it's like you have a favorite restaurant and you have tons of favorite stores. Like you're very comfortable with certain things. So for me, bike and biker is that. So irrespective of what I need, I'll first run to Rakesh. So when he says like I cannot help you with this thing, that is when I start looking for some other sources. But unfortunately, in these last 3 years, that's not happened with me. For everything, he's been a great support. He's been a great friend. He's been a big brother. So I've run to him in many ways. So that's it's for me. It's not a store. It's beyond a store. It's like when I walk into that place, like I don't know how many long number of hours I've spent over there. Like even today when I tell my wife I'm going to bike and biker, I'll be back in an hour. So she immediately says like, I know you'll be back by evening. So that 1 hour is not going to happen. So she's for sure of that. So that's the kind of comfort that you develop with a store. And since biking is a very integral part of our life, for me it's beyond anything. So there is a very special place also. So I have this tattoos which says live to ride and it says right to live. So that's like only two tattoos on me. So riding matters much more than say hobby or anything. It's more like meditation. So if I have to ride in peace, then the bike has to be happy, and if and the bike is happy with bike and biker.
So, if there's any message that you want to give to young riders and even the old riders that are there, I think just share something about that.
I think very basic thing is don't plan too much and don't think too much. That's very basic thing that I do. I don't put like a small kida or even the big kida in my head when I go on a ride. See, there is a reason why we all ride, and we don't travel to a place by like say in a flight or a train or a bus. So there is a reason why we ride, to get like say mental peace and to get that joy or that happiness. And if your brain is not happy, then there is no point in doing a happy ride. So it's better to keep our brain very clutter free. And biking helps us in so many things in life. We get more patient, we are more focused, and we basically give a lot of time to ourselves. So I think don't think too much, irrespective of anything. Even some people say like, oh, it's raining, I don't want to ride. Or there is a little bit of less tire pressure and there is no bunk open near my place, so I think I'll not ride tomorrow, I'll ride day after. So there are so many things like this that we put in our brain when it comes to riding. So I would say don't plan and don't think too much. The more you think, the less you actually ride. And that the minute you put that kida in your brain, then you really cannot enjoy your ride at all. So I've learned that from Chetan as well, who's finished 1 lakh on the Versys. So the few rides that I've done with him, he's really taught me endurance riding. He took me on a couple of rides, and they've really taught me a lot of things when it comes to. And that was the first thing that he told me. Like, if you think too much, then you really cannot ride. So and pretty much I've religiously followed the same thing. I'm not really. I don't think much when it comes to riding. So I believe every rider should do the same thing. Keep your brain clutter free. Just enjoy the ride, no matter what condition you are in. So to ride, all we need is a bike and fuel. So if you have that, the third option doesn't really matter to ride. So unless you have a bike which is healthy in condition and you have some fuel in your bike, just ride. So don't think of this number 3 at all, because this number 3 will go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So that's one basic thing I would tell to anybody.
In fact, before we end, thank you so much for all the compliments you've showered upon Bike and Biker. But probably this is the first time in public I'll confess that Versys Bangalore Riders, BBR. So if you remember, Manohar, 3 years back when we were in formative stages, 4 years back, when we all bought this bike, Bike and Biker was in very formative stages, and we were struggling to, grow and, service customers at the same time, and we were working out of other premises. And that is the time until today. That's a huge obligation I have from the Versys Bangalore Riders. And of course, you have supported us wholeheartedly. But you look at the members of BBR today, they have supported Bike and Biker. Like you said, they walk in like a friend, they buy things. And I would say I may have, not been able to service one customer, but 99 I have managed and kept them happy. And we are very, very grateful for that gesture, because the kind of support BBR is given. To put it in record, we won't have grown at this speed if BBR had not supported us, or people like you and so many others, names that I can't take, would have not supported us. So thank you so much for all the, compliments and support.
Anytime, sir.
Thank you so much, Manohar, for the kind words. It has been great talking to you.
Same here. Absolutely.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Manohar. Thanks for being
Anytime,
a great
sir.
friend and an awesome rider. I hope you finish 10 lakhs very soon, and then we can celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manohar. It's
Thanks,
been such a
Arjun.
pleasure listening to your stories, and thank you so much for all the compliments that you gave us.